there are two things that are going on, I think. One is that the more people refer to the science, the more you should suspect that they are engaged in some quasi-religious activity. Because the notion of some settled body of knowledge called the science is at odds with the reality of the scientific method, which is a constant struggle to falsify hypotheses through experimentation. During the COVID-19 pandemic, but I think it predates it, it was already going on in debates about climate, there was a lot of spurious invocation of the science. And one might as well have been saying the gods or the deity, because it was, in fact, quite unscientific thinking that was going on. I'll give you an illustration of this. A great delusion is to imagine that we can prevent the rise of average temperatures by large-scale asceticism in the West. We must give up internal combustion engines. We should give up eating meat, and so on. If we end up buying electric vehicles and solar cells manufactured in China with electricity generated by burning ever larger quantities of coal, the probability of reducing average temperatures is zero, because that is in fact the perfect illustration of wrong-headedness in action. If one accepts the premises of the debates on the causes of rising temperatures, it makes no sense at all for us to behave this way. Our asceticism will make no difference if it manifests itself as increased burning of coal in China. So that's the first thing that's going on.
I mean, or increased burning in coal in Germany, because that's what's happened with the Green Revolution in Germany.
Exactly.
They shut off the nuclear plants and started up the lignite plants.
Right. So this kind of wrong-headedness leads to all kinds of policy errors, because people are focused on the satisfaction of asceticism, the virtue signaling that comes with getting rid of nuclear power stations or internal combustion engines. So there's a kind of generalized failure which embraces the policy elite to think rationally about the problems that we're trying to address. The second problem, which I think is just as important, is the way the administrative state functions. If you compare central governments today with their counterparts of half a century or 70 years ago, they've become much larger. They're very bloated in terms of the numbers of people employed. They intervene in many more ways. There's an enormous corpus of regulation in all Western countries. And this administrative state, unwieldy, regulatory, is very inefficient. It's very bad at achieving its intended goals. And that has to do with the way that bureaucracy works and the sclerotic tendencies that the modern state suffers from. So between the science as a quasi-religious way of thinking and the administrative state, we have a very, very dysfunctional approach to nearly all the problems that confront us. And that is really the central argument of doom. It's very significant that in our lifetimes, governments have got worse at dealing with disasters, not better. Despite the accumulation of scientific knowledge, we seem somehow collectively to be worse at scientific thinking.